So welcome back to the Longview PD on air podcast. I'm your host, Michaela Vaughn.
I am Ryan Rocket.
I am Batman.
Oh.
Actually, I'm not. I'm Carrie Higginbotham.
Today's episode is going to be on becoming a police officer.
It's like a how-to episode.
Oh, yeah. We're taking you through the requirements, application process, and all stuff like that.
Oh, we just spoiled it.
Well,
everybody knows now.
All right, it's been a good show.
Yeah,
Thanks for
hope
joining
you guys
us.
enjoyed it. It's about a 30-second episode. So, the recipe to become a cop, specifically for the city of Longview.
yes.
It's a good call.
Before we get into the recipe, do we want to start out with why you would want to become a cop?
I mean, that's probably a good, Simon Sinek says we should always start with why.
So can you guys talk about what made you guys want to be police officers?
So for me, growing up, when I was young, I had an uncle that was a state trooper, and I thought it was just super cool seeing his car and him in uniform and stuff. I'm talking I was 5 or 6 years old, little. I don't know. That was just really cool to me. It's always been in the back of my mind is a fun thing to do, but I never really thought about it as a job for me to have. But the more I thought about it when I went to college, so I went to school. I had 6 different majors in college. Finally, I wound up graduating with a degree in political science solely because.
But you minored in international business, right?
Right.
Never having traveled internationally.
I was going to say, do a lot of international travel.
So I chose my degree plan, literally I sat down with an academic advisor and said, I need to get out of college. What will help me graduate the fastest? Because I knew if I just quit, I would never go back and get my degree.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you'd be on year 8 of not a doctorate track.
Right. So we went through the whole course catalog and landed on that. It wasn't because I had any career dreams of going into politics or doing anything like that. I just wanted a degree.
Okay.
And with the classes I had, that got me out the fastest. But then I was stuck hey, what do I do? I'm going to have a job. There's bills stacking up. I need to find something to do. And the more I thought about it, being a police officer, law enforcement, just started popping back up in my head. And I was like, man, that really does look like it'd be fun. It'd be a cool job. I'm way too ADD to have a desk job. I couldn't just sit behind a desk all day, every day, and do the same thing over and over and over. And this gave me an opportunity to do a new thing every day. You never know what's going to happen or what the radio is going to tell you is going on that you're getting sent to. People call 911 for all kinds of stuff. And this, it gave me a chance to be able to do more of my own thing and not the same thing, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so I thought about that and figured, why not? Let's just swing the bat and see if we hit something we like and go from there. And here we are 14 years later. And it's still happening.
It's like I blinked and I was like, wait a minute, I've been here 14 years.
Yeah. Time flies. What about you?
So I grew up, my dad was a cop for a long time. It was funny because, results may, differ between person to person, but he had worked in some cities in the Metroplex of Houston. He spent a little time with doing something for the state. He worked all over in law enforcement, and, I think before he ended up getting out, he had been, he'd been shot 3 or 4 or 5 times, and fortunately that hasn't happened to me, so that's it's pretty good, right?
Right.
But no, so I'd initially had a short and unsuccessful stint in college, and
How long?
I want to say it was right at 6 weeks, and it became clear to me and any other observer that this probably was not, the right time and right place for me. So I ended up going into the Marine Corps. That was a lot of fun. I had a great time in the Marine Corps. And it came time to get out. I wanted to stay in, but that wasn't going to be the best choice for me, having a young family. And, I had a still have a super committed wife. So when I told her, I was like, I'm re-enlisting. This is great. I'm going all over the place doing, fun stuff. And she had like tears in her eyes. She was like, okay, well, that's what we'll do. And I remember going to sleep that night. I was like, man, I'm so lucky, because knowing that she didn't want anything to do with that, she was just like entirely committed. She was like, okay, if that's what you want to do, that's what we'll do. And she had already moved at this point, 4 times. So I was like, if she's willing to do that for me, but I'm not willing to do that for her, it says a lot about her and a very little about me. So we ended up getting out, and I knew I wanted to come back to Longview. Our families were, obviously here. I grew up right down the street from the PD, and I was like, this is going to be an awesome job. So I'd started applying before I even got out of the Marine Corps, before I, had my last day. And I knew that I was going to work here. I wanted to do that. So that was the zigzaggy path that led me to here, I guess.
Interesting.
But I was just kind of one of those, like, I knew that the scenery would change, likely daily. That's appealing to me, right? I'm not mundane things, repetitive. It's not so much my bag of tricks there. But I knew that there'd be real fast-paced days and real slow-paced days, and I like it all.
Yeah. It's given us an opportunity to, or me anyway, and I think I can speak for you. There's so much more to it than I ever imagined there would be into being a cop. We conduct interviews in our position for people who want to do this job, right? One of the things that we hear all the time, and it has a tendency to come across as just like this is what they want to hear statement, right? Of I want to serve the community, I want to make this place better, whatever, right? And you realize once you get into it, especially, whether or not that's your feelings going into it, but once you get into it, you really do have a great opportunity to have an impact on the community and the individuals that live here.
Every single day.
All the time. And it's that really is a super cool part of this job, is being able to see an actual difference that's being made by yourself or by the people that you work with, the department as a whole, seeing the impact that we have on the community, seeing people at their worst and then following up with them later when they're at their best.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think we talked about that on maybe our first podcast.
But I mean,
some of the stories that
even you go back, like both of us had the same barber, and you remember where she started.
Yep.
She was struggling with addiction problems, and it was taking over her life. And I think you'd be too humble to admit it, but I think that you were one of the big steps that led her to her sobriety journey. And then, years later, she was cutting our hair, and now she runs a barber shop in the DFW Metroplex. And
she's doing good.
She's a super cool kid.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's way awesome. Because every time we'd go get a haircut, I'd be like, "Hey, how are you doing? Everything good?" And she could tell you the year, months, and days that she had sober, and it was awesome. And then she took that journey and then turned it into becoming a mentor to help other people on the same path to sobriety.
Yeah, she's a good one for sure. But I mean, stuff like that, like that's there's all kinds of fun, adrenaline packed stuff that you get to do, but the stuff that matters,
right?
That's the stories like that. That's what really drives home the reason of why we're here.
I always think like it goes back to that cliche: is how do you save the world? You start with the guy next to you.
Yeah, for sure. What you got, Michaela?
Why did you become a multi-police media's?
Well, okay, actually, yeah.
Specializing.
Let me talk about that. I didn't know what this job was going to be coming into it, but I think with a multimedia journalism degree, you're basically either going to be doing news or social media. And I knew I didn't want to go the news route. And honestly, there's not really any other job in social media that's as cool as the one that I get to do. Because, like you said, you guys are going out and actually helping people. So I'm getting to see the difference that you guys are making in these people's lives and actually bettering the community. So
job satisfaction's pretty high at this point.
Yes, no day is the same. And I think I'm like you guys. If I was doing the same old thing every day, it would not be good for me. So
one of the cool things about your job is you have a degree of, creative license. There's a lot of ways that you can spin a lot of this stuff as far as, like the stories you decide to tell with your outlets. I think that you have a really cool job.
I do too.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, obviously serving the community is a great thing. One thing specific to Longview, we also have this brand new building that we're in. So
for 14 years, we didn't have that.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But this place really is awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Seeing it from the first stages, I think, 2017-ish?
Nah, it was like 18.
Whenever it started, right? It was more like just a big pipe dream.
Mm-hmm.
You hear about it, and everybody thinks, well, it's just a building. I wish people would stop talking about it. And then now we're actually here. This place is great.
Yeah.
Like, really, really great. We've had our ups and downs already in the first week that we were here.
Mm-hmm.
As you would with any new building that you come into, there's going to be things that nobody thought about until it's time to do it. And then you realize, oh, crud, we dropped the ball here. So let's figure out how to make it work. Just hiccups with new facilities and whatnot, but we're ironing those kinks out. And
it's nice to all be under the same roof.
It is.
Yes, it really is.
A roof that wasn't built in the 60s, 70s.
Right.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Pretty nice.
And we have room to grow.
We do.
So can you guys talk about some of the requirements to become a police officer?
Mm-hmm. So we'll start with the big one. You can't be a felon.
Okay.
That's key.
No
Yes.
felony convictions. And you can't have a Class B misdemeanor or above in the last 10 years. And I guess, translate that to maybe not criminal justice specific lingo is you can't have done bad illegal things.
Right.
And the felonies are, if you don't know, those are like the real bad ones.
Yeah.
The most severe of the bad are the felonies.
Yeah.
Basically anything more than a ticketable offense, right? So like your speeding tickets and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
we realize that people are going to have mistakes like that, minor things that come up. But anything higher than that, you've got to have a clean record for at least the past 10 years.
Okay.
Yep.
You have to be a U.S. citizen.
Correct.
Yes.
We've got physical requirements that you have to meet.
That's right.
For a long time, we had a physical test that you had to take. It was like an obstacle course per se.
That's probably a good way to say it.
That you had to complete. We've changed that recently here in the past month or two to a rowing test. It's a 2,000-meter row, and you have to complete that in a time that falls within the 40% max VO2, right?
Well, it's based off of VO2 max, but it's a scale that is calculated according to
Your age, gender, height, weight,
yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the physical requirement that we have getting into it. It's just that road test.
And that's on the 2,000-meter row.
Mhm.
Correct.
Yep.
And then weird caveat, but you can't be colorblind or have night blindness.
Let's see. No drug use, right? Maybe that's just a good policy, period.
Yeah.
But yeah, no drug use of any type within the last 2 years.
Yep.
Here at Longview, we don't require a college degree.
We do not.
We like them.
They help. They have a way to benefit you progressing through your career.
Mm-hmm.
We offer extra pay for college degrees, associate's degree, bachelor's, master's degrees. Doctorate, do we have a
No,
level for that?
I think it's master's and
Okay.
doctorate on the same incentive pay.
One thing that a college degree does do that we don't really pay for, right? But it does give you the experience of living in a college environment, of soaking up some of the professional aspects of future career building and whatnot.
Yeah.
So there's always benefit to it, but it is not a requirement.
And then on the other side of that,
employed.
the city, we're pretty fortunate, and the city offers a tuition reimbursement program. So let's say you start without a degree, you decide I want to get, associates, bachelor's, master's. The city actually will reimburse you for that.
Yep.
That's a huge benefit too.
Yes, it is.
College is not cheap.
Yep. Oh, on that, you have to be a certain age.
Oh,
right?
man. Yeah, you do. Good catch.
Thank you.
You cannot become a police officer without turning 21. Well, there are a couple of exceptions,
Okay.
but they're very niche. But without turning 21 at or before the date that you test for your peace officer's license.
Correct.
Okay.
So because of that, we put on the academy here for
Mhm.
Longview Police Department as a general rule for like our new recruits. So if you're going to turn 21, it has to be before the date that you test or receive your commission.
Right. And that's typically the last week of the academy when they do
Mhm.
the testing.
Oh, you also have to have a good driving record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna have you riding around in a patrol car, in an official capacity, we don't need somebody bumping into the citizens causing the problems that we're trying to help
Right.
people
Right.
solve. Yeah, know how to drive. That's a good one.
And then if you speak Spanish, that's a plus, right? Do you
It's a
get
huge
extra?
plus.
Yes.
So we have a bilingual pay stipend
Okay.
for people who are bilingual, obviously. But there's it's not just, hey, I speak Spanish, so give me that extra pay. There's actually like a testing requirement they have to go through to, I guess, to document their fluency and proficiency in the language. But it's not just Spanish, right? There's a need for multiple different languages. It's just in our area, Spanish is the most common.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what does the application process look like? It's a pretty lengthy process, right?
Looks like a lot of paper.
Okay.
A lot.
I mean, I say that. When we applied here, it was a lot of paper. Maybe
Mine was a lot of
Is
paper.
it digital now, or are we talking like pen
No,
and paper?
when I came in for my initial interview and they decided, okay, we want to like proceed with this, they handed me a stack like this thick of paper.
Yeah,
And they're like, it might take a while, but go through all of it and then fill it out and send it back to us.
yeah.
So-
So I know that like at the time that we did personal history statement, it seemed like it was just dozens and dozens of pages.
It took
Right.
forever.
Yeah, and that personal history statement's going to go back from where all of you lived, what schools did you go to, 5 references, and then we're going to contact those 5 and ask them for 5 others. Every job you've ever had, why did you leave, how long did you work there, all that kind of good stuff. It's a pretty that's a long document.
It is. And then that's just the first start. Not the first start, the tip of the spear, I guess. We go through those applications that come in and we conduct the interview boards then. So there'll be a panel of interviewers. Typically it's 2 lieutenants and a captain that are on those boards. We'll do the initial interviews and then pass or fail on those. If they make it through from the initial interview, then they move on to a psychological examination, polygraph, and a pretty intensive background check, which goes into those references you were just talking about. The background investigations go as far as talking to teachers you had in your school growing up, the friends that you have listed, people who you don't have listed. They'll make contact with your references, like Carrie just said, and ask them for more people who may know stuff about you. We get pretty in depth with it. We've had people question why we go so deep into the background, but with a job like this, it's pretty important to know that we are truly hiring the right people for it.
Right.
Yes. You're given a lot of discretion.
Right.
And the fact that the decisions that we make day in and day out impact the very freedom that people have is not something that should be taken lightly by any stretch.
Yeah.
So once that process is done, so after the initial interview board, if they pass that, we give them a contingent offer of employment, saying, hey, if you pass all the following steps, that psych, polygraph, background, then we will hire you. So once that part is done, then the first stage basically is over, and they get placed into an academy class and go on from there.
So the academy is pretty performance intensive in that. So I think when we started, it's a little bit longer now.
It was 16 weeks.
16 weeks.
I think it's 22 now, right?
Right.
And there was like you're tested on everything.
Like everything. Like it's even spelling. There's spelling test every week of the academy.
Spelling test?
Spelling test.
Vocabulary. Yeah. It's it was took more than it was not simple. Which the spelling tests were. You know, some people really misspell Mr. Demeanor, but you know,
Mr.
Paraphernalia.
yeah, a paraphernalias. But yeah, you're testing on everything. I believe that when the standard was 80% at the time when we went through the academy. Is that what it was?
I believe so.
Yeah, and you got one mulligan.
Yep.
On anything.
Yeah, if you drop
So,
below that standard score, if you do it again, you're out.
Oh, okay.
Like it's over. You know what I mean? So when I was going through the academy, there were 7 of us that were hired with Longview. And so in addition to our 8 or 9 hours that we were in the academy every day, we would actually meet up and have like 2 and 3 hour study sessions post academy 3 days a week to ensure that, you know, we were helping each other along and succeeded.
Yeah.
So we did that every week through that whole thing.
It's a very course curriculum intensive.
Yeah.
We cover everything from state and U.S. constitutional law, the penal code, traffic code, alcoholic beverage code, family code. I mean, there's any law that there is in the state of Texas, we have to cover all of that stuff throughout the academy.
Penal code?
Your laws, your basic laws.
Oh.
Yeah.
So your assaults, thefts, robberies, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But we have everything with the stuff we talked about. There's arrest, search, and seizure classes, use of force classes, driving courses.
Right. It's not just
firearms
like
stuff. I mean,
homework and coursework. You're actually going out
Right.
and doing like physical training and stuff like
there's
that.
practical exercises that go along with the majority of curriculum that there is.
Pepper spray.
Oh, that's always a good day.
That is a good day.
Always.
I had to go get pictures on that day, and I got some of it.
Did you?
Yeah. So everybody was like, do you want to get sprayed? And I was like, no, I already got some. I'm good.
That stuff is rough.
It's
rough.
It's spicy.
Mm-hmm.
What's the TCOL exam like?
Hard and long.
It's not easy.
It's a lot of questions. I don't know how many off the top of my head. I want to say upwards of 150, maybe more than that.
It was not a short test.
And it's very in depth.
It's it's not like in some courses you're like, we learn for a week, then we test on that whole week. No, it's like front to back, start
like
to finish.
everything.
Yes.
Right. So every course that is taught, we do have a test at the end of that course. So like the penal code class I teach is about a week and a half long. The last day we'll have a test on that. And that goes into the testing that Carrie talked about earlier. You know, you get one chance to try again. And if any other course moving forward, if you don't make that minimum standard score, then you're out of the academy.
Yep.
So you go over that at the very beginning of the academy as a penal code, and it's one of the hardest classes that you have. And then when you go to take the state test, the TCOL exam, at the end, it goes back and catches all that stuff from the very beginning, every course that you've taken throughout the entire training process.
Day
you're
1,
tested
week
on.
1 to day 5, week 22.
Yep. Hey, I do want to brag on our last academy class, though.
Oh, yeah.
They had a 100% pass rate on the state exam, which is a pretty good accomplishment.
Yeah.
So that was first attempt.
Yes.
It was 100% pass rate first attempt.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's impressive.
They did
Yeah,
a
it
really
is.
good job. It was a good group of people.
So you've got 22 weeks of the academy, and then you've got 17 weeks of field training.
Yes, sir.
So that would be the equivalent of like, okay, you know what all these things mean. Now let's go take all the things you've learned and put it into practical application on the street under the intense scrutiny and supervision of one of our field training officers here.
Right.
And then at the end of every day, they're just going to write this document about every single thing that you've done wrong.
That's what it feels like, man. That is absolutely what it feels like. I had one of my field training officers had what I called the notebook of death. And it was terrifying.
We both had the same one.
We did. And
Yes.
she was a great field training
She
officer.
was.
But man, she made me nervous when she pulled that notebook out.
Yep.
I'd look over and see her scribbling something down, and it's like a sinking pit in my
I
stomach.
remember after every call, we'd get in the car, be like, well, that seemed like it went okay. And she'd go, okay, is that what you think? And then she'd pull out, it was a small blue and black notebook on a steno-sized pad. And dude, she documented everything. Yeah. I remember her DORs, at the end of the day, the evaluations we got, I remember they were like this. The best case scenario was that thing was 3 pages long.
Yep.
I remember I also had some that were quite a bit longer than 3 pages. It seemed like
She was very thorough.
she was.
Good at what she did, though.
Yes.
Field training for me was the first time my eyes were actually opened as to what being a police officer entailed. Because, you go through, everybody has these preconceived notions about being a cop, right?
Yeah.
Like
We
it's
all
gonna
watch
be
Chips.
running around chasing people, right? But that was I remember my very first day of first phase of field training. And I was with Officer Stroud, who is one of our training and recruiting officers now. Mm-hmm. He was my first phase field training officer. And I sat down in the car and was just kind of frozen because I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a clue what to do. And he made me realize really quick that it's okay not to have a clue what to do, but he's going to make sure I figure it out. And honestly, that was some of the most fun that I had, but some of the most terrifying experiences. Not physically scared as far as, oh my gosh, this job is terrifying, but oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yes.
Right? it was,
I remember, so for the outside listener, right? Once you finish the academy, it's unlikely at this point that you even met who your field training cadre is going to be once you get turned out. And I remember day one, I go to meet my first phase training officer. And it was Terry. Not a small man.
Nope.
He was humongous. This dude was jacked. And he comes up to me and goes, "Hey, my name's Terry. I'm going to be your field training officer. You ready for this?" And, bro, I looked at him dead in his face, and I said, "Yes, sir, I think I am." And I said, "I want you to know I think I've got a pretty good lock on this." He goes, "Oh, yeah?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I want you to know that the last 2 weeks I've binge watched every episode of CSI Miami, and I'm ready." And
What's up with you and CSI Miami?
his face turns like as white as a sheet of paper, and he just like stood there staring at me. I was like, "Sir, that was horribly timed joke. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm looking forward to learning. I'm going to shut up." And he goes, "Yeah, that's a good idea." Okay. But it was once I graduated, he was like, "Dude, you were my first trainee I ever had, and in a million years, I would have never thought that the words that you spoke would be the first words I hear." Yeah, and then it was interesting because just a couple of days later, we would get put on or my FTO would get put on an assignment, and I had to go with him because you go everywhere your FTO goes. Right. And I think it was like day 3 we started this. And one of the things we were dealing with a specific issue that was popping up, and we were looking for this car. It was a white Mustang with a tan convertible top. I'll never forget that. And at this point, I've learned I need to shut up and watch and listen and like a sponge soak all this in, right? So I'm just like, riding shotgun, mouth shut, eyes open, ears open. And we get this briefing about that car. Well, the night's going on, and we're driving down the road, and I see a car. And I'm not wanting to say anything because I'm like, surely he saw it. And we go like a couple of driveways by, and I'm like, "Sir, we were looking for a white Mustang with a tan top." He goes, "Yep, should be pretty easy to spot." I'm like, "Yes, sir." It was 1 block behind us. It was coming onto our road. And he like whips his car around. Car ends up running. We get into a car chase. I'm like, "Oh my God, this is going to be the greatest job ever." That never happened again. Yeah, it was a long, long time before anything that that wild happened again. But yeah, I'll never forget that. It was pretty funny. He goes, "Why didn't you say something?" I don't know. Don't hit me.
So can you guys talk about the different phases of field training?
Yeah, so a lot of people are nervous day one. They don't want to screw up, but at the end of the day, just as there's a training process for recruits to come in, there's a training process for the FTOs, right? Mm-hmm. We need all of them on the same page. We need to make sure that they know what the standard is here, and that what the expectations of them are to hold that standard for us, right? So, I guess to comfort any fears of anybody that might apply for on day one, your FTO does not expect you to know anything. Your FTO is going to hold your hand and say, this is where the papers are that you're going to need to do this job. Here's the bathroom, right? So for the first phase, the idea is that you go from 0% to 33% at the end of week 5. So by the end of 5 weeks, we expect you to have a working knowledge and practical application ability for only about 30% of what it is that we do, right? And then logical progression says that second phase goes from, a third to 2/3. Mm-hmm. And then third phase goes from 2/3 to all of the thirds. How many more are there?
that would be
just one more.
Yeah, just one.
Math is actually not on the police academy. So that's the idea. And then, so that carries you through 15 weeks. And then after that, this is where it gets real scary, is ghost phase. And I know FTOs who have done it before. Ghost phase is like, this is a simulation almost, but it's a test of your abilities, resource management, everything, right? Mm-hmm. And your FTO does not help you. And if you ask for help, that's a bad day.
It is.
And it's not that you can't ask for help. You can't ask your FTO for help. Mm. At the point for the last 15 weeks, you've been taught about all the resources that you have at your disposal, right? Whether that be my beat partners, my supervisors, anybody that's helped me along the way, that's taught me things. Those are all resources, and you need to understand how to use them, what the right resource is for the right time. So everything will be fine if you need help, as long as you don't ask your FTO, and as long as your FTO doesn't have to step in and say, you're not doing this right at all. This is the perfect way to not do this correctly. Right? So that would be a bad day. But I know that there's been FTOs in the past that trainees get in the car for ghost phase and they look at them like, all right, I'm ready to go. And then the FTO doesn't ever say a word. They just go, ooh, I'm a ghost. Yeah, so ghost phase can be a little nerve-wracking.
It can be. And, one thing that we see every now and then is you'll have a trainee that's in ghost phase that comes across some situation that they truly have never encountered before.
One of those niche things.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they show up, and those are the times where the FTO realizes that. And they say, hey, this is a good learning moment. Yeah. And they'll step in and they'll still help them out and walk them through the process and make sure they can tuck that away in their bag for later. But it's a very comprehensive program. There's a lot to be learned in this job, a lot's expected of us as police officers. And the way that we have it formatted and run right now is extremely efficient. And I think we have a really good group of field training officers that do an exceptional job of getting people where they need to be.
Yep. And then, so after ghost phase, typically if you've been in this process, I mean, from, 0 to hero, it's 10 months.
From the beginning of the academy?
Yeah.
Roundabouts. It's, 22-week academy, 17-week field training.
3 or 4 weeks pre-commissioning.
Right. Yeah. It's the better part of a year you're spending just soaking stuff up and learning how to do this job.
And then you're like, cool, I'm a real cop now. And then the next vacancy that's available on patrol is where you go, so you don't get to. Sometimes if you're lucky, you end up timing it right, where you're like, wow, I'm actually going to get to sign up for where I hope to go next year.
Right.
But most of the time, that's not the case. Yeah. It's like, oh, it's June. Here's what's left.
Yep, you are the plug for the boat.
Yeah,
keep it from sinking. We gotta plug those holes, and we'll put you in wherever you're most needed. A great thing about the field training process, we've got field training officers throughout every shift of the department. So people have experience on day shift, evenings, and nights.
And each one of those shifts is very
completely
unique.
different.
Yes.
Completely different goals.
Mm-hmm.
The evening shift is typically... Go ahead.
Is each phase of field training a different shift?
Not always.
Okay.
Not always. So it depends on where our field training officers are, their schedules and availability for trainees. Sometimes we'll have trainees who go back-to-back day shift and then hit nights or evenings, and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
typically, if we are able to, we will get them experience in all 3 shifts during the training process. Ideally, that's what we look for. It's not always feasible, and we get that, but as much as possible, we get the experience across the board, which is good because whenever they do get assigned wherever, at least they know people on that shift.
Right.
They'll have an idea of who they're working with. It won't just be some random person in a uniform who people are asking for an ID to see if they really work here. It's good to know people.
So I guess, after that, you start looking at what is it that I want to do here, right? Because we've got guys, who have worked here for longest tenure right now is Sergeant Hiles, and he's
3,500
years. 3,500 years.
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah.
That's
He was
about
telling
right.
me about when he took the wrapper off the dirt. So that was cool. It was brand new. Great long career here. And then the question early on becomes like, what do you want to do? And, those answers are always, across the board as far as what people want to do. I know that we had very similar aspirations. We wanted to either be, we both wanted to do SWAT. We both ended up there. We both wanted to do narcotics. I didn't end up there. We both wanted to do SI. You beat me there.
That was because he was more mature, right?
That's right.
That's right.
He was,
Don't forget it.
Yeah.
Write it down.
Exponentially more mature. Yes.
Yeah, there's tons of opportunities though within the department. We have had people who have done an entire 25, 30-year career working patrol and been completely happy with it and really loved every moment. But that's not – go ahead.
Patrol is the most important function here. And at the end of the day, if you're looking for like, I don't want today to look like tomorrow, it never will on patrol.
Yep.
That's a new day every day.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When I went to SIA, I had a blast over there. And then the same thing in the narcotics unit. I had a really good time. But when I promoted and came back to patrol, I realized then how much I miss being on patrol because it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Just being here and doing the job of a patrol officer there's not another job in the world like it. It really is a blast.
A lot of fun. So after that, we had Officer Howell on a couple podcasts ago.
Yeah, on the Blue Santa.
And she chose the path of traffic. So, that's an important role, especially as it relates to, the unfortunate part, which is accident investigators. Of course, I don't think people realize the amount of training it takes to get that certification.
Right.
I honestly didn't even know that was a thing.
Oh, man. A lot of physics come into that, right? Accident reconstruction, that's a whole thing in and of itself to do all that. So that's a very important role.
And part of the traffic unit, we still have a couple of motorcycles that we run.
Yep.
They use primarily for escort purposes, parades, stuff like that. But we do still have some motors that get out and about. But there's more than just your stereotypical police work, right? Everybody thinks about cops, they think about traffic. That's really the main thing that comes to mind. But talking about Officer Howell, she just moved here last week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
From the traffic unit to the PAR unit, which is our police area representatives. We talk about community policing a lot. That's kind of a hot topic among law enforcement. It has been for several years now. But that's a unit that truly their sole job is to interact with the community and be the liaison from the police department to these community organizations and groups that are out there. They do a lot of stuff. We've talked about National Night Out. That's spearheaded through our PAR unit.
Neighborhood watch programs.
Yep. And then really any other community event that goes on that involves the police department with the community, they have a really thorough involvement with those. They dive pretty deep into that, and they do a really good job of it. Currently, we've got, 4 PAR officers?
Correct.
We've got Officer Clayton, Officer Johnson, who just moved over when Officer Howe, and Officer Brown, who has been there for a couple of years now, right?
Yeah,
Probably 3 years.
So
along with the PAR unit, we've got the Post unit. Post started out as being a more of a unit that was tasked with dealing with the homeless population and finding resources for them. That way we could cut down on complaints we get from business owners, from the community, of the problems that go along with homelessness. And they've really developed that spot, our post officers, into more of a community outreach for those who need
help,
need bigger help, right?
Need
Than just your typical people. So they do a lot of mental health work, and a lot of work with the homeless population.
Okay. So is that where our like homeless ID?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So that's where
Okay.
that originated with,
Okay.
was with our PAR and post unit. They worked together on that one and really got a good thing going, to try and help people get back on their feet,
Right.
who are in unfortunate situations. Then we've got, 2 officers in our post unit currently.
Yep.
And that's what they do all day, every day, is everything in their power to help the people who need the most help in our community.
Connect and have access to the resources that will, get them
Officer
taken care of.
Birdsong, I've got to really give him some props. He's one of our post officers. He was recognized a little while back for the work that he's done with people, getting them into rehab and truly changing lives. And he's touched so many people throughout Longview that there's a guy came in when he was recognized in the municipal court chambers a few months back that met Officer Birdsong for the first time when he was homeless, living on the streets, battling with drug addiction. And Officer Birdsong got him not just help there in the moment, but long-term help. He reached out to some contacts he has with a rehab facility, got this guy accepted into the rehab treatment center, and he fit in so well there that he was able to not just overcome his addiction, but find a spot working with that facility to help other people overcome their addictions as well.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, he has done some incredible work. So yeah, that's our PAR and post unit. We've got the SWAT team here in Longview.
SWAT team.
That's right. We've got.
I love the SWAT team.
So SWAT stands for Special Weapons and Tactics. It's a group with some just amazing members on that team, highly professional, highly trained, and very well equipped to handle basically any high risk situation that comes up in or around the Longview area. So we work with the East Texas Council of Governments and have an agreement with, I think, 14 surrounding counties that we can go and help them out whenever they call. So we really take advantage of that, and we like the opportunity to be there and help out. Really, a lot of forethought goes into everything that each member of that team does because they care so much about the community that we're in, and they want to make sure that everything is handled appropriately. What else we got? That's the SWAT team.
CID.
There you go. Talk about it.
CID covers property and persons crimes that we have detectives assigned to.
So CID being
Criminal Investigations Division. Thank you. So that covers the 2 categories that we kind of have, which is property crimes. So that's crimes related to property. So like say your car gets stolen, your purse gets, burgled from your vehicle.
burgled.
I love that. I love that word. We've been burgled. So that's property. The persons would be if a person was a victim of a crime.
Okay.
Right. So like assaults, family violence, juvenile and crimes against children, things like that. So within that, we also have, detectives who are assigned to do cyber stuff. They work with a lot, not just our own agency, but a lot of other agencies to help them out as well. Let's see. What else is there in CID? PES. Yeah. And so the other side of CID, it also encompasses is PES, so our physical evidence specialist. So, going back to CSI Miami, that's called full circle.
There it is.
For those, for those listeners. The PES guys are the ones that are out there, with fingerprints and, beakers and Bunsen burners. All right. And then one that strikes close to home for both of us. SIA.
Special Investigations and Apprehension Unit.
Yeah. Oh, SIA was a lot of fun. So the Special Investigations and Apprehension Unit is kind of a unit that is tasked with identifying problems that we're seeing occur within the city that might be persistent or constant, and then figuring out ways to address those so that, they're not problems anymore. One of the other responsibilities of the SI is to deal with any gang-related problems or organized crime, because we've had the mafia here. Not really. But that's what everybody says. Everybody thinks when you're like organized crime, they're like, oh, dude, we got the mafia? Yeah. No, but, anything where it's a bunch of people working in concert to, victimize other people, that would be organized crime. That's one that it's just kind of like there's no Monday that looks like any other Monday you've ever had. Same for every other day of the week.
We do also have a canine unit within the department. Currently, we only have one dog, and it's assigned to Officer Prescott, who is part of the Special Investigations and Apprehension Unit. Another thing that we have at the Longview Police Department is our code unit, the County Organized Drug Enforcement Unit. Now, that's a task force. It's combined operation between the Gregg County Sheriff's Office and the Longview Police Department. And they focus specifically on narcotics crimes that happen in and around Gregg County. They do a lot of partnerships with federal agencies and other local agencies in the region to investigate narcotics cases. That's a unit that I was in for a couple of years and had a really good time doing some pretty cool stuff over there too.
And then we'll talk about the training and recruiting section. So they are, responsible for exactly what the name says. Handling training of officers that's new and tenured, and heading them streets looking for new ones. So that's kind of what led us to this whole thing today, is talk about what it takes to become a police officer. And we're currently staffed with one sergeant and three officers who work there as kind of dual role as background investigators as well as instructors, and just a number of various law enforcement topics.
So you spent some time in training and recruiting.
I did.
How long were you there for?
Not long.
Right, because you promoted out of there.
Yeah, the
to
opportunity
sergeant,
came
right?
shortly after I made it there to test and promote to sergeant.
Gotcha. Which I guess that's a good segue, right? So we have these other units that you can go to, but we also have upward advancement that you can take within the department. Sergeant being that first step of promotion. The sergeants are our first line supervisors for everything that we do. We've got each patrol shift has 4 sergeants assigned to it, and then all of our specialty units each have a supervisor at the sergeant level.
And it's helpful too to diversify your experience within your career. If you're a patrol officer, you get some experience in CID or in narcotics or SIA. And the idea is that if I decide to promote in my career, maybe I can work my way back to running that unit.
Right, which you did. So you promoted to sergeant. You worked on patrol for how long as a sergeant? Do you remember?
A few years.
Okay, and then got the call to that the SIA position was
opening back up.
Opened up. And so you moved over to SIA as the supervisor for there for a while until you promoted to lieutenant, which is that next step in promotion. So Carrie and I are both lieutenants with the Longview Police Department. If you've listened to our first episode, you've heard us talk about that, so I'm not going to get too deep into it. Yeah. The lieutenants are your real first level of upper administration for the police department. We have an opportunity to make changes and create plans and come up with stuff that has long-lasting impacts on the department. Then from there, we go up to the rank of captain, which, again, referencing prior episodes, our last episode with Captain Lair, he is currently the operations captain. So we have 2 captains at the police department, one that's over operations and one that is a support captain. The next step up for promotion from the captain level is to assistant chief. Currently, Assistant Chief Kemper is in that role. And then, obviously, the next step from there is the chief, Chief Boone.
Chief Boone.
That's it. Yeah. So that's basically
front to back, top to bottom.
Yeah, in a nutshell.
All right. So
Yeah.
how do we close this?
If you're interested in becoming a police officer, you can apply at LongviewTexas.gov/LPDJobs. LPDJobs is in all caps.
Cool. We also have our recruiting number. If you want to reach out and talk to someone directly on the phone, you can call them at 903-237-2723. That is for our training and recruiting division.
If you have any questions about requirements or anything, those are all on the website that we said, LongviewTexas.gov/LPDJobs. You can check that out. You can apply there. Thanks so much for listening. Stay safe. We hope you're doing good, and we will see you next time.